When aliens land on Earth in sci-fi movies, it's always in the US, which makes zero sense. Why not in Brussels? It's the capital of the European Union. Well, maybe they prefer Washington because they read this online. Europe is losing the space race. Alright, first news, there is a new space race. Between who exactly? Not only is Europe in outer space, but the European Union is doing quite well. Let's take space surveillance, for example. I can already see the comments coming. All the EU does is monitor or complicate stuff with regulations. Is space even their job? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it is, and it's really cool. My name is Florent, and today we're investigating the space surveillance and tracking component of the EU space program. What is the EU watching out there? Is there a threat from outer space? And what are they doing about it? We'll tell you everything you need to know as we dive inside the files. First of all, we need to clear up some stuff. It's not about aliens. There is no secret facility in Brussels where the EU holds the remains of extraterrestrial beings, I think. And it's not about asteroids either. Asteroids, as well as astronauts, are monitored by space agencies. So what is the EU surveilling up there? There is a real threat, and one that is likely to increase over time. That's space debris. Maybe you've seen images like this one. This is a simulation of all of the trash, let's call it that, orbiting the Earth. That's a lot, and it's mostly bits and pieces from discarded rocket parts and satellites. These roughly 1.2 million pieces measure between 1 and 10 centimeters, and since they move around at a few kilometers per second, even a tiny piece can do massive damage. There are also more than 3,000 dead satellites of various sizes up there, and some of them are as big as airplanes. So here's the thing. Most of this space trash is in low Earth orbit, at a height of about 1,500 kilometers. This is also where observation, positioning, and communication satellites are. These satellites are used for pretty essential things: weather and environment monitoring, transport, energy, and even health coordination down here. A lot of things that we need on a daily basis. If one of these satellites gets hit by a big enough piece of trash, the consequences will be really bad. They could simply stop working, which is obviously not good, or the satellite could be simply pulverized, creating even more debris. Oh, and sometimes these pieces just randomly fall back to Earth. They don't always burn in the atmosphere. The fact that space is very big is, so far, enough to limit the risk of collisions. But the number of debris just keeps increasing. The reason is simple: humanity is launching more and more stuff into space, especially large constellations of satellites, which only aggravate the risks. Because debris can also hit other nearby spacecraft and create a chain reaction of satellite destruction. This is called the Kessler Syndrome, and while it is hopefully only a scenario, it makes space surveillance very important. Let's take once again satellite constellations for example. According to a very interesting study, which I will link in the description, they could start an event like that. Every 11 minutes, two of them pass each other at less than a kilometer away. And every one of them must make around 40 maneuvers a year to avoid collisions. So yeah, close calls are frequent. And this is where the EU comes in. You probably didn't know about it, but a part of the European Union space program, because yes, they have a space program, is dedicated to the surveillance and tracking of space, or SST for short. The SST is a network of 70 sensors scattered all over the world that detect and watch over man-made objects in space. This network of radar and lasers allows the EU SST to fulfill its three missions. And hiding a secret weapon against aliens is not one of them, I think. The missions are avoiding collisions between satellites and other objects by tracking them and issuing warnings. Obvious. Predicting and assessing the risk of uncontrolled reentries, which is a fancy word for predicting the path of rocket parts crashing down to Earth, which happens more than you think. 108 times in the EU in 2025. That's one every 3 days. And lastly, something called fragmentation analysis. Sounds boring, but it's not. In case of a collision or explosion in space, the SST can detect this and calculate how much new debris is out there. Because yes, fuel tanks and batteries tend to explode on their own in space. Thankfully, this is under control. And over 300 private companies and scientific organizations use the SST services to protect their satellites. And thanks to the 600,000 measurements that SST shares every day with its partners, 600 spacecraft are safe from destruction. Also, unlike private companies who need to make profit, the EU does not. Which is why they provide this service for free. If you are in the EU and you happen to have your own satellite, keeping it safe costs you nothing. I would be surprised if anyone watching this actually owns a satellite, but here you go. I think you'll agree that pooling our resources, knowledge, and technical skills to operate this system once again for free is amazing. And having your own integrated array of sensors allows you to be fully independent from others to protect your precious satellites. So, what's next for EU SST? Well, first, you can always do better. Better services, better sensors, better data processing, and more coordination. All of that is being researched. But most importantly, as part of the Space Act, the EU wants to avoid debris as much as possible by 2030. The idea is to decrease the number of pieces left behind in space during every launch. But there is more. With future technology, spacecraft could be repaired in orbit, and robots could clean up the trash. Also, if some countries could avoid blowing up satellites with missiles, that would be great. Not that it happens very often, but it's a source of debris that we could all live without. The EU does a lot of stuff in space, so if you want to know more about it, tell us in the comments. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next week.